So we are talking about invasion and establishment of microbes. All right, so what happens? First thing that happens is you get contamination. You come in contact with the microorganism. So in the case of the SARS-CoV-2 virus, if you come in contact with it, comes in contact to the body, then what's going to happen? And we'll talk about that as we go through the PowerPoint. Any microorganism, when you first come in contact with the body, there's some options from the initial contamination. Some microorganisms we come in contact with all the time. We came in contact with them from birth, and as we go through our life, they're not causing us any harm, and they become part of our resident microbiome. So that is one source or one outcome of contamination. So we get contaminated, they come in, they colonize, and again, don't cause us harm. And in fact, sometimes they help us, like our gut microbiota and other things. So they'll become part of our resident microbiome. Sometimes we come in contact with it and something we touch on our hands. Maybe we went out shopping and we touched something with that SARS-CoV-2 virus, and then we come home and we've washed our hands. That's why there is so much importance put on hand washing. If it is outside on the skin, you can wash it off. No problem. This particular virus, the SARS-CoV-2, does not get through the skin. The skin is a very effective barrier. Most things cannot get through the skin. So hand washing, very important. When they talk about medical professionals coming in and changing clothes or washing your face, not touching your face and potential portals of entry like your mouth, your nose, your eyes. So these are transient biota. You came in contact with it, maybe even SARS-CoV-2. You came in contact with it, but it doesn't stay. You take appropriate measures and you get rid of it. So that is an outcome, a possible outcome of contamination. You get rid of it. Otherwise, another outcome of contamination is that you come in contact with a microorganism and it does get inside and it does colonize and multiply and become established. Now, this is considered an infection. You were infected with this microorganism, but this may not be a bad thing. Remember, all our gut bacteria are good bacteria. We've also talked about the bacteria that maintain in the female vaginal region and the positive outcomes from that being there. This infection may not be bad. It's only when these bacteria are pathogenic and can cause us a disease that it's bad, when they overcome our body's resistance, our immune system. All right, so 3 possible outcomes of contamination. It becomes part of us, our resident biome, or we wash it away and it doesn't stay, a transient microbiota, or it comes in and establishes, colonizes, establishes, becomes an infection, but this still doesn't mean it's a disease, okay? All right, so outcomes of exposure to that. All right, what's next? So portals of entry. How is it getting in? How is it invading? All right, so portals of entry. How could it get through? I told you the skin is a very good barrier. It's part of our immune system, and that is true. But there are some organisms that can get through the skin. We have some natural pores. We have sweat glands. We have hair follicles. There are some pathogenic bacteria that can go through the skin. The other thing is if the skin gets damaged, that's a big problem. You see that big scrape there. Anytime we have damaged skin, that's why I tell you in lab that we need to cover things with a Band-Aid, make sure we're wearing gloves. Any sort of damage to the skin can allow access to microorganisms. This also includes insects that can get past the skin. So the skin can be a portal of entry. It's part of our defense mechanisms, but again, there are some pathogens who have virulence factors, something that allows them to get through the skin, and then there's other times when the skin is broken and it allows access. So portal of entry, skin. Another portal of entry, mucous membranes. So the skin lines the outside of the surface. Remember that tube I was talking about? And when we talk about bacteria, microorganisms living with us, we're talking about things on the outside of the tube, things on the inside of the tube. The outside of your tube is covered by your skin. The inside of your tube, your esophagus, into your digestive tract, respiratory membranes, all of the other things on the insides of the tubes are lined with mucous membranes. These are also part of our defense system. They are a barrier. However, they're thinner, they're moist. Pathogens can more easily get through mucous membranes than they can our tough outer skin. Skin cells are dead on the outside, they're closer, they're thicker. So mucous membranes are a portal of entry for many pathogens, including our SARS-CoV-2 that they're dealing with now. That's why they really want you guys not to touch your face, because you get something on your skin, you pick it up on your hands, and then you rub your eyes or you rub your nose, and then it gets into that mucous membranes and it gets inside of us. This is more of a problem. So a lot of respiratory diseases, including this COVID-19, uses the respiratory tract as a portal of entry. Our flus, our colds, those types of things. Gastrointestinal mucous membranes, many diseases that we consume in our non-living reservoirs, food and water. We consume them, they get past the stomach into the small intestines and the gastrointestinal mucous membranes. They have virulence factors that allow them to pass through those gastrointestinal mucous membranes and set up an infection. So mucous membranes can be a portal of entry. All of these, any type of opening throughout the body is a portal of entry, a way that things can get through. So I've mentioned the eyes, the nose, the mouth, through the placenta, vaginal regions, sexually transmitted infections can be passed through that. Any opening can be a portal of entry, including insect bites and broken skin. Now, there's one other thing to talk about in this one. It's not necessarily a route of entry, a portal of entry, but instead it is where the pathogen bypasses all of the portals of entry. So this is called the parenteral route. This is when you get a needle stick. Maybe you've got a health professional with an accidental needle stick, and they contract a bloodborne disease from that, or an IV or a drug user that uses IV drugs and does that. These are our vectors, our mosquitoes are biting insects that can pass through the skin and do that. Any sort of breaks in skin, piercings, thorns, needles, all of those kind of circumvent the portal of entry, and that is referred to as a parenteral route of infection.